Women who identified as liberal feminists, the vast majority of feminists at the time, took different approaches. To break down resistance to women's advancement, they tried first to expand the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment to include sex as well as race. Failing that, they turned to the Equal Rights Amendment that had been hanging around for almost 50 years. In 1972, at the urging of women's groups, Congress finally passed an amendment to the Constitution and sent it to the states for ratification. The new Equal Rights Amendment declared that the quality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. It was that simple. At the time, perhaps a majority of women in the United States believed that such an amendment was only fair. Such amendments existed in every industrial country by then, and the United Nations Human Rights Group urged passage in those that did not make women's equality a priority. In the United States, 35 of the 38 states needed to ratify did so by 1977. But then, ratifications stalled. Opponents raised several objections. Would women under an Equal Rights Amendment be eligible for draft into the military services, they asked. This was a serious question in the mid-70s, with the war in Vietnam just ended and women struggling for admission into the armed forces. And did a draft for women mean that they would find themselves in combat roles that were not yet under consideration? What about unisex toilets? If the Equal Rights Amendment were passed, would it be legal to maintain separate toilets for men and women? I don't have to elaborate on how that argument has played itself out in recent years, nor to point out that it didn't take an ERA to start that conversation. In any event, the opponents prevailed. Phyllis Schlafly, a founder of the conservative Eagle Forum, organized a movement called Stop ERA, which told housewives that the amendment would hurt them. It would, argued Stop ERA, release men from the obligation to support their families, making women equally liable for family support. To women who had given up careers to live traditional lives, this was a frightening prospect. If they divorced, they might lose all rights to male support. In 1978, Congress, recognizing that that Equal Rights Amendment was probably not going to pass by the 1979 deadline they had originally set, extended the deadline to 1982. In the remaining 3 years, 5 states voted to rescind their approval, leaving only 30 states. In 1982, the Equal Rights Amendment proponent group gave up. But that did not mean that the hunt for equal rights was dead. Women still wanted to dismantle the barriers to equality, an equal or a level playing field, as they put it. They turned first to the EEOC to achieve that end. By 1969, the Equal Employment Opportunities Commission had overcome its initial reluctance and would begin a successful campaign to incorporate women within the framework of the 1964 Civil Rights Bill. Urged by Now and others, it had forbidden the publication of separate help-wanted male and help-wanted female newspaper advertisements. The practice, which was ended in 1969, not only discouraged women from applying for good jobs, generally listed as men's jobs, but also warned readers away from jobs for which they might otherwise be qualified. In the same period, the EEOC abandoned its efforts to enforce protective labor legislation for women only, and it began to include women in affirmative action programs that required employers to meet quotas of minority and female workers in order to be eligible for government contracts. Trade unions had also joined the bandwagon for women's equality by the 1970s, signing on for the first time to the ERA. Yet women trade unionists remained suspicious of the internal culture of masculinity. In 1973, they organized themselves into the Coalition of Labor Union Women, CLUW, in the effort to reform unions from within and to move women into leadership positions.